recently had the opportunity to have a conversation with Lisa Cairns, who is absolutely hilarious and fantastic and empathetic and connected in every way. And this particular conversation turned a little bit more into a hangout session than an interview. And so going to share that anyway, even though we didn't really get into a lot of insights, there are still some things that came up that might be of value. Definitely have to have her back on at some point and to get into some more specific questions and details. But hope you enjoy this as much as we did, because it was definitely a really, really good time.
Hello. Hey, nice to meet you.
Too.
Can you hear and see me okay?
Yeah. I saw your cute doggy photo.
You see my dog? Oh, you saw the cute doggy photo. She's just here. Yeah. But she looks a little like Angelo's dogs, right?
Oh, is she little like that?
Yeah, she's like a Basenji, yeah. But she's a wild dog. She's not a breeded dog. But they're similar Basenjis and wild dogs because they're not so selectively bred by humans. So they have the tail and the upward ears, and they have the wild look for hunting. And yeah.
Where do they come from?
She comes from Southeast Asia. The Senjis, I think, are from Africa.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she's like her DNA is apparently 14,000 years old.
Wow.
So
That's
the Senjis, I think, is a really ancient dog, but the Senjis are pretty ancient as well. Yeah. I got her tested. I didn't really believe that she was fully non-domesticated, but she is.
That's great.
Yeah. But it's very similar. It's very similar to the Senji.
It's interesting. Similar types of dogs.
Yeah.
I would introduce you to Amadeus, but he's downstairs right now. But he's a really big dog, an Italian Mastiff.
Oh, wow. Wow. That is big.
Yeah.
Isn't it funny, like, if you had said, what type of dog have you got, I might have gone with Mastiff.
Really?
Yeah, I think that we all have dogs that are similar to us in a way, or like hold qualities of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It fits. It definitely fits.
Yeah.
That's what the neighbors say. They're like, oh, yeah, that dog fits you really well.
Yeah. Yeah, people say that about Khaleesi and me as well. She's sort of, I mean, I don't think that I pounce, but she walks like this. I think maybe I do.
Oh, tell the truth. You walk that way for sure.
Doesn't feel like it internally, but people say we're alike, so I assume I do.
So what's new with you? What do you have going on?
I don't know. I don't know what that means. I think this is an American saying, and I don't know. It's a bit like WhatsApp. WhatsApp, not WhatsApp. What's up? That's it. That's what the Americans say. What's up? I went to university in America for a while, and they'd be like, "What's up?" And I'd be like, "I don't know how to reply to that." And then everyone's like, "You just go, what's up?"
Yeah, just say it back. Yeah.
So what did you say? What is going on with me?
What's new? Yeah, just
what's new? What's new? I don't know what that means. Like, but does that mean that what is new? Yeah, that's I'm sounding like my partner. That's the sort of thing he would question. What's new? Okay, let's see. What's new? I'm just going to imagine what that means. Well, my partner is away on retreat, so I'm home alone. That's new. Normally I go away and he's here alone. So that is new. And it's sunny here in Northern Europe. That is new. It's sunny for 2 weeks, which is really, really lovely. And all the birds out. There's like a immense bird song at the moment.
Yeah. That's new here too. Yeah. I mean, this morning. So I have a sun. I don't know what you would call it. It's just like a little. It's like one of the portals that you have on your roof. Like a skylight, but it lifts up a little bit too. It has a screen underneath it, and it was like being almost like brought into existence through the sound of birds. It was so vivid. Oof,
Yeah.
kind of like gives the chills.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's nice, especially because I live, it's probably 2,600 meters above sea level, so we're pretty high altitude, and it takes a while for spring to show up here sometimes, and so
Okay.
birds are finally out. You know,
Oh, yeah, nice. Yeah.
it's beautiful.
Yeah.
So, I don't really usually have any formal questions. It's just kind of a regular conversation. The only thing I
Okay.
ever basically ask is like what has brought you to awakening or spirituality,
Okay.
and that's about it.
Can I ask you a question? I don't know, have we begun or not begun?
Oh, I mean, uh we have and haven't really. Yeah, any of this stuff can be cut out too. It just seems like it's a human conversation most of the time.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, I just wanted to ask you about your acting.
oh yeah,
But I can do that after if you prefer,
you can ask anytime.
unless
You can ask now.
editing. Okay. I just wondered if you still acted.
It's been a while. Usually that would come with invitation, and my agent moved to the other side of the United States, so haven't really had any opportunities come up for a while.
Yeah. And uh, so I just asked because I write and I'm thinking I don't know if I would ever produce the audiobook of it, but I know this is a really weird thing to say, but I think it would be really beautiful to have actors that have had awakenings
Hmm.
and to read it, like because I feel like there's like an energy in the tone of the voice. I know
Hmm.
the book's about spirituality, but it's fiction. It's not but it is English accents. So what your accents are like. Well, one of them actually is an English accent. One of them is anything you want it to be. That one's from outer space, so that doesn't have to be. Or when I, um, but the other one is a British English accent. Yeah.
I could do that.
Oh yeah, cool. Oh,
Yeah.
that's just something to, like you meet and you collect bits of information, something to put in there
Yeah.
for the future.
So is it a novel? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's a novel.
It's amazing.
And it's character written so that so I originally studied and trained in theatre and playwriting, and then my partner was like, why don't you write a novel? So I wrote it through monologues, and so I've made it from first person point of view. So I knew how to write a play, and then I was like, hang on, I just have to do this but do it longer.
Hmm.
I obviously had to learn how to write a book as well. I was a bit naive, but but it's a similar, so it's spoken in the first person. So I've got Andrew the cat, which is the English one, who's from London,
Hmm.
and then the out of space goblin clone. That just makes it sound very weird, which it
I
is.
love it. I love it. So wait, I didn't know you had a background in performance and in theater.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
amazing. Oh,
yeah,
see, it's perfect to have this conversation right now.
yeah.
How long did you study?
Well, I started acting in childhood, and then I was going to go to drama school,
Mhm.
and then I couldn't do it because um, I'm very shy and introverted, and I have quite severe dyslexia, and auditions were hell for me.
Mhm.
Like, so, like even though like when I left school, I had a very low reading age, and even though they give you extra time and stuff to prepare often at auditions, with reading, it was just like hellish. Like it was really,
Yeah,
yeah, it's really like that is a massive part of it is auditioning. And then I realized after a year or two of doing this, after, when I was auditioning for drama school, that my life would be hellish, because this would be my everyday.
yeah,
So then I sort of changed path and went into writing, and then thought maybe one day I act again through writing.
that's
And that
brilliant.
was yeah. So I sort of like studied and was into drama my whole childhood, and then I went on to do a master's in performing, or not masters, a BA in performing arts, and I went to Sacramento state where Tom Cruise or some, not Tom Cruise, Tom Hanks went.
Sacramento State.
Exchange. Yeah, and we went, he did an exchange there. It was really cool. This is
That
where
is.
they were all like, what's up? Don't know.
You just reply with the same thing. What's up?
We have the same. We have this thing, you go, all right. And then, all right. Yeah, it's the English version. But British English, sorry.
There's so many different dialects even in the United Kingdom. It's so interesting. When you like sometimes when they're doing like what is it called, Cockney rhyming slang?
Yeah.
No idea what they're saying at all, but it's so catchy.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, that's a little bit like what Andrew the cat is like. So that is a bit like what
Okay.
what it would be. A little bit, but he's from the other side of London. So it's a slightly different accent.
But not quite Guy Ritchie, right? Not quite
Not
that.
quite Guy Ritchie, but similar. But
Okay.
it's only like 10 miles away or 20 miles away, but it's a slightly different accent. Funny, eh?
Yeah, when it comes
Yeah,
to
so what?
auditions, when you brought up auditions, that was the scariest, most difficult aspect of all of acting. And
Yeah,
I became dedicated to be able to teach other people because I started learning some little tricks to get better at auditioning. And I spent probably 20 years teaching people how to audition better because of how
wow.
difficult it was. Because especially cold reading and things like that, it's so challenging to do.
Yeah.
And they would tell us in school, they would say, in the first 15 seconds of your audition, they've already decided if they like you or not. And I'm like,
Yeah.
so then why are we doing minutes of this?
Yeah. Why put us through any more pain? I just remember at one drama school, they were like, okay, now be a bit of spaghetti. And I was just like, oh, fuck this. I can't be an actress. I could be a bit of a sketty.
How? How?
I know. Yeah. It was, I mean, it's actually very inventive, but like, I mean, I had dreams of doing Shakespeare and classical acting, and then I was like auditioning to be spaghetti.
I work with somebody who runs a Shakespeare company in Sydney, Australia,
Yeah.
and he asked me to do a reading recently. I just didn't have the availability to do it. I guess we were going to do it over Zoom, which would have been kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I think
Oh
he's
yeah,
doing
cool.
I think he's doing Lear, King Lear, which is it's a great piece.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, we could speak so much about acting. I mean, it taught me presence. I'm sure it's the same, you learn Stanislavski, Alexander technique.
So many. Yeah, we did some of that. We also did Laban efforts.
I don't
Um,
know if I know what that is.
it was mostly movement, and I think it was so it's like combinations or spheres of movement. So for instance, heavy or light, fast or slow, and like direct or indirect. And so you would do a combination of these different types of movements. We went to a very for America, it was a very conservatory style theater school. And through all those movements and yoga and the different things that we did, it was really good education overall. Yeah. But
So,
Alexander
and you
was
and
so
you
good
you
too.
studied acting or you studied performing arts or
So it was a BFA in acting, directing, and teaching.
oh nice. Okay.
So I spent 5 years in school to complete all three of those.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you caught that interview, but I was telling Angela one time we did a Greek theater piece, and we had to really embody it. And if you've ever done Greek theater, it's very over the top, very archetypal. And so I was playing Ajax, who had just witnessed his entire or he had just slaughtered an entire herd of sheep thinking that it was the enemy's army, and he had like just come to and realized how embarrassed he was. So I had like this Caro corn syrup mixed with red food coloring for like blood, and I was completely naked underneath this loincloth that was not well attached doing this huge piece, and it was probably the most personally frightening experience of my life just because everyone was there, all of the teachers and the students and everything, and it was just so raw and so vulnerable that it,
Yeah.
you know, I was like crying in the midst of the performance because it was just all of everything was coming up in that. And there's so much in awakening that I learned through acting. I had no idea. Had no.
Yeah. And people that don't do acting or don't study acting, like how seriously we take it. I think it's so serious,
Mm,
you know, like to really, like it was so serious, like being in the moment and like really embodying the character and really like being the part. Like
mm.
it was like maybe when you leave and you start acting professionally, it becomes less serious. But when you're in school for it, it's like the most serious thing there is, especially when you get a really amazing teacher.
Oh,
So you really like go for it and jump in and do these like really crazy things that people wouldn't imagine.
definitely. It
It
was
becomes maybe a little cultish in a nice way, and maybe negative way for some people, but like it's so
it is very much like that actually. It was all about pleasing these teachers for a while until we kind of took our own theme and energy with that. And yeah, it's amazing the things that people would do for their performances.
yeah,
There were a lot of injuries.
yeah, yeah.
But so writing, that's pretty cool actually. And you've been doing that for a long time?
Yeah, since I was maybe about 15, and I didn't think it was possible because I have such severe dyslexia. But then I was like, well, if I can speak and if I can act, then I can write it down. I just might not be able to write it down that's legible for other people. And, you know, and then the computers began to get better and better. And
Hmm.
so now I mean, I keep thinking I should record what I do because it's a combination of typing and speaking into the computer. And then I can't always read so well, so it speaks it back to me, and then I can tell if I've got the right word, if I, you know, because like sometimes like the Sue or purse looks the same to me, you know, I can't tell. So then it reads it to me, and I'm like, oh, okay.
They do look the same actually, both those
There's
words.
a surprising amount of words that look the same to a dyslexic, so you can't tell the difference. So I use like, yeah, and it's basically the same as acting to me, but you know, and improvisation. And it's the same thing, you know, when I'm writing, I'm totally the character, you know, I'm like really like
Love
the
that.
character, I'm channeling the character, you know, I'm here, the character. And then I'm like, oh, come on, say something different. I don't want to go that way. And they're like, no, that's what's got to be said, Lisa.
I would
So
love to see that process actually. I think that'd be really cool.
yeah, you should do that one day, record it, or for a few days, because it also maybe would teach people patience, you know, because it's I have to be very patient because then also the computer doesn't always do the right words and then it gets all stuck and then it repeats and then it's just like else. So you're like, so I really have to learn patience. And then writing a book is such a big thing. It's so many words.
And reading
Yeah.
is so interesting in that regard too. I read this article. Most people fill in the blanks. We don't even really read the entire word. The mind is basically kind of filling in all those blanks. We see the beginning and the end of the word, and then just kind of make up the rest, is what they said. And
Yeah.
they were doing this other study on people that have schizophrenia, and they were looking at those, those visual illusions where if you look at like a box or something and to the side you can see like a little dot, but if you look toward the dot appears somewhere else, those kinds of things
Yeah.
you find
Yeah.
online. Apparently they don't work for people that have schizophrenia. So it's basically the way that the mind is able to create illusion. For people with dyslexia, it's not creating the illusion as thoroughly for that it does for other people.
Oh,
So
that's fascinating about the schizophrenia. Yeah.
yeah, it's actually really interesting how that works, but they're not prone to illusion, which kind of gives some insight about something there.
Yeah. 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 I mean, it is really amazing the way we read and the way we're interpreting, and that our brains can do that.
Yeah,
It's
they
such,
used to have this it was, I don't know if it was a meme, but it was like a little test, and they would have the rest of the words jumbled up except the first and the last word, and they would just have a sentence, and people are able to still read the sentence even though the rest of the words aren't in order because of that
yeah,
first and
amazing.
last letter. Isn't that it
Yeah.
is interesting how that works.
Yeah. How intelligent our brains are in
I've
some
noticed
way.
I've noticed a lot of people that have dyslexia are much more prone to waking up.
Yeah, it could be. There's definitely, I mean, that could be, I mean, are you dyslexic?
I don't know. I mean, I didn't really ever have issues in school, but when we did reading tests and things like that, apparently the way I synthesize words is different than other people. That's what they would say, but they didn't have a name for it.
Yeah, it could be. It's really fascinating because I don't really understand what it is, but there's something around memory. So when I learn to do something, I have to learn it very deeply. I can't learn it on a superficial level. And something with memory and words that don't work so well. So it also took me a lot longer to speak and to read. To so yeah, so like when you drive a car, you're driving it on automatic. Like that's how I kind of have to learn things, is really in a deep manner. I can't learn things superficially because I'll forgotten by next week. Um, yeah, and when I had my shift, my memory got even worse. So it like it's it's interesting, all those different connections and the areas in the brain. It'd be amazing if we can map it one
That
day.
would, that would be.
So I don't know if like all of that's connected. Like somebody once said that a lot of people report after awakening their memory gets worse, and I think they thought, or maybe I thought that one of us thought that we discussed it um that when you're not repeating the story of yourself so much, your memory isn't needed or isn't used as strongly as when you're repeating the story of yourself a lot. It's like activating that area, and so it sort of goes into redundancy a bit. I don't know if that's true.
Well, it kind of makes sense because there's definitely been a lot of memory shifts for me. Um I used to be able to like remember a face and a name so well. And now all the time when my partner asks me, "Oh, you remember Susan?" and I'm like, "I have no idea what Susan is." It's so strange because it, before it was like your memory is so good with all these people, you're able to keep track, and it just doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I did notice something about thought too. I remember early on, it was a very recursive structure, just a constantly flipping over. Like there was just a lot of repetition happening all the time, and there was some reference to itself, but there was also just like replaying events over and
Mm.
over and over, and that seemed to be a huge part of memory for a long time too.
Yeah.
Pretty weird.
And yeah, and that maybe also be is why a lot of people get very exhausted, is because it's like using a lot of energy as well. It's like using a part that's not really needed, like to keep on repeating what has been or what's going to be.
It's got to consume so many calories.
Yeah.
Did you have any sleep changes post awakening?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. Initially, it got better like over time, but initially there was a lot of lack of sleep. There was just so much energy. Like, so there would be like waking up in the middle of the night. Yeah, just like really awake. But it got better. Like now um I sleep and I also know what not to do that gets me like really energized around sleep time. Like there's certain things that I shouldn't do near anything which involves blissing myself out too much. That's not gonna I'm not gonna sleep if that happens. Music, no. Spiritual music, definitely a no.
Yeah. I went from like 10 hours to 4 or 5 hours a night, and it's been that way for years and years now. Um,
Wow.
I don't feel tired, and I noticed that I'm not activating in this space as much. I spend a lot more time energetically or attention oriented in the body. I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know. I was just curious if that was common. Angelo mentioned something like that too. If it,
Yeah. I think it is common. I think people often report that they need a lot less sleep.
I know I've had a
Like
long day at retreat if I've slept 6 hours.
yeah.
Do you do any in-person things or do you usually stay? Do you do retreats or anything like that?
Yeah, I do retreats, yeah. No, normally like once a year or something.
Nice. Do you have anything coming up?
I have some a retreat in October.
Nice.
Yeah. So I just do one a year. This time it's been two this year, but normally I do it around April or May, but this year I've done one in April and in October. Okay.
And then do you stay close to home or do you travel abroad a little bit?
The preference would be to stay close to home, but the problem with Northern Europe is it's so expensive. So to go to Southern Europe and hold a retreat, it's a lot cheaper for people, better weather,
Hmm.
and maybe fresher food. You know, so they're more so Southern Europe tends to be a lot cheaper for people. You know, and I mean Northern Europe's very expensive. Maybe you have that in America, but it's a different West versus East or something. Like maybe California is like super expensive to hold a retreat.
Definitely. Also, Colorado now is really
Yeah,
a lot of
I can
people have moved
imagine.
here, and it's remarkable how expensive it's gotten.
Yeah. I think that isn't Colorado near Boulder. Yeah.
Yeah,
Boulder's in Colorado. No, I forget. Sorry.
yeah. I could drive probably 40 minutes to get to Boulder from my house.
Yeah, so there's like so I think Boulder's like very spiritual, is that right?
Yeah, that's usually considered
There's a like
spiritual.
the immense like there was like I went there maybe 10 or 15 years ago and there was like huge spirituality. So I can imagine it's like got a lot bigger. It's
Yeah,
spread.
yeah. They do pretty big events. You know, it's like Tony Robbins kind of large events in Boulder or near Boulder. But yeah, it's pretty expensive in there in Boulder. And it was so funny when I first met Angelo, I was invited to a 1 day meditation retreat. So I assumed automatically it was going to be in Boulder, and then I found out it was in this town called Commerce City, which is it's like the antithesis of Boulder. So I was like, uh-oh, what am I getting into? You know, they have like an oil refinery there. It's mostly industrial.
Yeah.
So when I was driving on the way, I'm like, I'm gonna get captured and put into some kind of slavery or something. I had all these thoughts, you know. But it turns out he lives in a really nice part. It's funny that they call it Commerce City because it doesn't look like Commerce City. It's like really rural and pretty over there.
And so how many years have you known Angelo?
Man, I lost like a 2 year period where I don't really remember anything, but it must be 5 or 6 years now that I've known Angelo. But it still feels like we're kind of just getting to know each other. It's strange that way. There was a point where I asked him, I'm like, hey, you want to hang out? Do you want to be friends? And he's like, no, I don't have time for that. But when he talks about, he brought it up later on and he said, I had this feeling that you were attempting to displace through friendship or something like that, something that was going on, you know, for you. And so that's the only reason I brought it up in that way. And it was true, actually. I was afraid to be alone at that period of time. Things were kind of getting really scary. You know what I mean? Like, um, it just seemed like the whole world was flipping completely upside down. And at first, it was like this utopia, kind of really nice feeling. But then I started having these kind of feelings of depression and irritation and just not very good feelings start to seep back in. And then during that period of time, I was definitely grasping for some kind of orientation, you know?
Mm.
And I'm actually kind of glad that I ended up going alone at that because there was really nothing to hold back any longer. And it was probably one of the most intense, difficult periods of life, but also the most rewarding overall for sure.
Mm. Yes, I really don't know your story. So you met, you were into spirituality before you met Angelo, or Angelo introduced it to you?
Yeah, I wasn't really interested. I was actually in a place of like nihilism and apathy. I wasn't really interested in anything. I had gotten to a place where I didn't even have the energy to kill myself. I just was going to melt on a couch, you know, and somebody had invited me to a 1 day meditation retreat. So I decided to go, even though I had all these thoughts about not. And it was probably within the first 5 minutes of meditation that I had this extremely intense, like shooting out of my body experience. And I
Mm.
felt like I was, I don't know, traveling at the speed of light, and there were just colors, and I had no hands, I had no body. And then I could hear the bell, and suddenly I'm like back in the body, and an hour had gone by. It felt like just maybe another 5 minutes or 6 minutes had gone by. And as I was looking around, everything kind of had a golden glow to it. It was just like actually glowing. And the first thing that kind of came up was, I wonder if I ate some mushrooms, or somebody spiked the food, because it was kind of really psychedelic. And
Yeah,
I went upstairs, and he has this in his backyard. He has all these cattails. I don't know if you call them reeds, maybe in Europe,
yeah.
but these, in this marshy area, and there are these little red-winged blackbirds flying from cattail to cattail. And every time one of them would move, it would be like this, like this, like, I don't know how to describe it. It was like a wave that would just go through everything, and I can feel them moving. And it was just like complete fascination. And
Oh,
we had a few more rounds of meditation. Some other things had definitely gotten really very strange at the time. But then all of a sudden, it's like I had stepped into another timeline where everything was just perfect, and everything was working out perfectly. And I would go to a grocery store every day for about 6 months and give people hugs all day. That's just walk around, give people hugs. And sometimes people would say, "No, thanks. I don't want you to touch me." And that was the first time in my life I'd ever been rejected by anyone, and I didn't feel like I wanted to die. Like it was like something had changed for sure.
yeah.
So it kind of was
That's amazing.
spontaneous, but there were all
So
these.
so it happened the first time you met Angelo, just in the first 5 minutes.
Yeah,
Wow.
so I mean, in the first 5 minutes of meditation, we had spoken maybe for half an hour before we went down to his Zendo that he has in the basement. And it was a really nice, authentic, just, a real human conversation, which seemed to be hard to come by at that point in life. And I didn't know anything about meditation. So when he said, "Oh, you can lay down if you'd like, you don't have to sit," I was like, "Oh, thank you." Because I had no,
Amazing.
I thought, at that point, I thought meditation was just a quiet time for adults. I didn't know anything about it. But as Angelo and I have discovered a little bit, there was a lot in acting, in the journey of acting, that helped unlock some pieces of identity and how those mechanisms work. And I'm sure, as you know pretty well,
Yeah.
every time I would enter into a character, I would be a little different when I'd come back. Um, it was strange. It was like putting identity on the shelf for a little bit, and pieces would kind of start falling off. And then when I come back, I'd like attempt to reassemble it and not really realize that there were things that were missing, um,
Yeah.
certain mechanisms at play. So
Yeah.
I would,
I remember through acting, like I didn't I don't know if you had this too, like I was a knowing, even when I was still at school, it was a knowing that I had to be in the moment when I acted. So it was like you learnt the lines, you learnt the movement.
there's
And
no
then
way.
I knew I had to be in the moment. Maybe the teachers had told me that or something, but it was like you have to be like 100% present, and you almost like have to not be there. Like so, it's just you be present, and then it's like everything speaks through you. And yeah, so I was performing that like like all the way through childhood, like doing that kind of activity, where I knew that the the best results were when I didn't get involved. When I got involved, I would forget my line or myself.
That's exactly it. When I first went to college, I didn't have any acting experience. I was an athlete, and I'd hurt myself. And my roommate, my freshman year of college, was a musical theater major. And he said, "It's kind of like sports, you're out there, high pressure situation, you have a bunch of people watching you." So he convinced me to audition. And so I took a monologue from a movie from a character who was black. So I was breaking all the rules already, to go in and to audition. And they stopped me in the middle of my audition, and they said, "If there's anything else you can do with your life, we recommend you do that." And I was really humiliated at that point. So I had decided I was going to learn how to act. And for a long time, I thought it was about adding all these layers of like character, like pretending essentially. And
Mm.
then something suddenly changed where I had was given a character for a student directed one act play. And it just felt The character felt like somebody I could really connect with, and so I started to become that character. And I remember that's where I first learned about the presence in acting, where it was just,
Yeah,
oh, there's no one there's nothing to add here. It was simplicity and in the moment, and letting
yeah,
those discoveries show up in the moment instead of, showing that you have a plan as an actor. I went from actor to character, and it was pretty remarkable experience. It changed a
yeah,
lot of things.
yeah. Yeah, it is. It's like we're doing these meditations and we don't realize we're doing these meditations and we're sort of like, yeah, something's really changing in that moment where you realize, and when you enact that of not acting, like yeah,
It's exactly that. Yeah, it's
yeah,
acting isn't pretending, right? You're not
yeah,
acting actually.
yeah,
But I love the way that you just put that. Yeah, it's a meditation. It's a dynamic meditation.
yeah.
That's beautiful.
And you really, it's really like you really have to live by that because you're being watched.
And
Like, so you can't just suddenly go, oh, hang on, let me just
yeah,
start that again. It's
yeah. And also, I mean, it's also being bold or intrepid in that too, where it can feel personally like a risk, but once you cross over that, it's gone. There's no person there to feel like the character is a risk any longer.
yeah. Mm.
Once the managing of the character just kind of stopped on its own, it was just the character. And it was, when people speak of method acting, um, that's the only way to fully like drop into the character, it seems. To
Mm.
have a manager there the whole time to make sure that you're making the right choices and doing and having the best discoveries and really engaging with magic if and all these, pieces, those start to come together on their own. And so when I started teaching acting, um, it was really easy to tap into someone's personal engagement. And that was significantly more effective than teaching them all the skills that were kind of more superfluous, more surface. And even kids, I mean, young kids would drop into character and be so convincing that I would have parents come up to me at the end of a show with tears and be like, I don't know what you did or how you did it. And I'm like, not, no, I just gave them the environment. They went all the way on their own, you know,
Mm.
and
Yeah.
that so rewarding. It was just, I don't know, something about it was just, it was very spiritual. It was very
Yeah.
spiritual without
Yeah, I
having
think
an overt title.
yeah, I think that's why I fell in love with drama and performing. Like it is a spiritual experience that like my mum, I mean, it was obviously there's all psychological stuff, but my mum used to take us to, she loves the theatre and she used to take us to the theatre. And I even used to find going and watching the theatre as a spiritual experience. I didn't know that till afterwards, but it is like I used to just love the moments where you have this like big drama and you've had the music and then everything goes black, when there's a scene change and
Hmm.
everything just falls into silence and you just got the vom or the vibration or the hum from the electricity
Mm.
and the whole audience is just and then comes back in again, especially if
Mhm.
it's a musical or something.
Oh man.
And it is, and I remember a few years ago I went on this cruise with my mum to see her I this pop star that she really likes. My mum's really into concerts, and it
Hmm.
was like a cruise, and they did like lots of performances. And so and his name's Michael Ball, and all of them really adore him. All the people on the ship, and I'm sort of just there to be with my mom, and I like him. He's nice. And I looked around, and I just was like, they're all having spiritual experiences, but they think it's about the music and him, especially because it's like musical. He was a musical performer and also a singer, so there's a lot of musical stuff in it and very dramatic. But I could just look at, look and I could see all their love and their devotion towards him. And it reminded me of like kirtan or bhajangs and meditation. And yeah, it was just really sweet to realize, but they just see it as it being about him and like projecting it all onto him.
Oh, that happens in so many places.
Yeah. Yeah.
That type of displacement, that it's external. It's not happening right here.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's an interesting realization too. Um, Had that for a long time. A lot of idols, athletes, and things like that. And then there were those times, in nature or alone where that same experience, that felt experience was showing up, and that started to give a lot of insight on its own. How could it be external if it's right here, right now?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's what I loved about theater. It was a felt experience more than anything. And
Yeah.
it was always a surprise, right? I mean, that's a good show. Something outside of expectation, you can't really follow with this anymore. So you have to follow all the way. Like it's like a body movement. And when
Mm.
that great musical number would come up or just a beautiful performance, we would just be absolutely, completely engaged. And there's nothing like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially when it's seemingly collective. Like so there's this group of people that are totally in the moment together.
Oh,
It's,
it's like a church, really.
yeah.
There was an artistic director here in Denver. We have a really big regional theater here, and he said the only two non-withstanding communities left in America are the theater and the church. And then at the very end, he said, "What's the difference?" And it's kind of true because it really is a spiritual experience for most people.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it's like a lot of the way in which they teach in the church is through storytelling, so there's a similar
And
like
the history of theater
music
too.
and hymns.
They used theater as the only way of teaching because most people couldn't read. And so
Yeah.
all of the stories were done in passion plays and things like this. It's very
Mm.
interesting. I just love how the Greeks used it though too, because it was the experience was catharsis. They really wanted to bring about catharsis for the audience, and to do it in the classical theatrical form of the Greeks, it really is that intense. It does bring about a feeling of catharsis for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, Greek theatre is intense. I don't know so much about the history of Greek theatre. I loved it, but it's really like a intense experience.
Very intense. I mean, if you do one performance, you're probably not going to do another one for a week because it's that body demanding, really.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's just such an interesting overlap that I had never seen until Angelo and I began to kind of explore that. And so now I'm so glad there's someone else I can speak to about it because I think it's a perfect venue, for a lot of
Yeah.
things. And I'm so glad you're
Mm.
writing and would love to take part if you ever need help with anything.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the idea of, doing projects like audiobooks or theatre or acting with people that have had an energetic shift. I know that this could get all cultish and weird as well, but I mean in the sense that like I think that there's an energy in people's voice that
Mm.
isn't, and so I think this is something interesting to play with.
Yeah,
And so obviously now everything I write is about awakening, but just hidden
I think that's
in
amazing.
disguise.
And you said you don't do as many one-on-ones.
I did do one-on-ones. I haven't done for a few years now,
Okay.
for maybe 2 or 3 years. I just do groups. Yeah, I mean the writing takes a lot of time, and yeah, then I do the groups, and then I do a retreat every year, and that seems to take up all my time.
Makes sense. Is it like
I also do a
satsang?
lot of, yeah, satsang, yeah, but just in really small groups. So I do these things called book clubs now. So there's like 6 of us in the group,
Hmm.
7 of us in the group, and then we study a book, like a non-duality or a spiritual book together. And this kind of works really well because, when there's only 6 people, like I run out of things to say very quickly, and then the questions become the same. So studying a book, it's kind of like satsang, but
Mhm.
we're sort of keeping focus. We're not going too much into individual stories, or we're not, getting lost in chit chat or something. So it really works well. It's really beautiful. So I do 3 of those a week, and yeah, and I write every morning and some afternoons. And then with all of that, my time, and then I do a lot of sitting and doing nothing as well. That takes time.
That's a requirement, pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah.
So your partner, or is he interested in would you say you're doing the same kind of things?
Yeah, he's interested in this as well. Yeah, and he's also creative.
I love
So
that.
yeah, so we both have the creativity in common. He's like an artist and game designer and these types of things, and really respect him in that, and what he does. And then he's also into this subject. In fact, he's on retreat this week.
I love that. I love your
Yeah,
earrings, by the way.
yeah, that's
Those are
in homage to my partner. I don't actually play computer games now because I try not to go on the computer only just for work, because I do so much work on the computer. So we play board games, but I can't really have board game earrings. They would look bad.
yeah. Would
Just a
it be a
board.
box
Yeah.
or maybe like a chess piece? I don't know. I mean,
Yeah. Chat maybe.
some kind of token.
Yeah.
We play a lot of board games at this house too. There's
Oh, you do?
oh yeah, there's this game. I don't know if you've ever played it. You might really like it. It's called Mysterium, and it's image based and it's entirely intuitive. You do not speak throughout the game, and
Oh, cool.
attempting to convey a message with these cards that have a lot of images and colors and things on them to like give clues. It's actually a really fun game, and
And it's called Mysterium.
I have a sense you would really like it. It's more than two players though, just so you know. It's like three.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we find it hard to get other nerds together. Board games are amazing. People don't realize how amazing board games are. They're
Oh,
so inventive.
it's the
Like
best.
the other day, we were playing a cooperative game. I'm not so into cooperative games, but we were playing this cooperative game to land an aeroplane. Like, it's so, like, I mean, they're so amazing. Like the different games that are out there now. Like that was really cool. It's not my being the cooperative thing, but like that was cool. Like how they think of doing these things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember growing up, it was all about, just brutal taking people's heads, kind of like competition.
Yeah.
And now there's a lot more cooperative games out there.
Yeah, it's becoming the big thing. I can't take too much competition, so I like medium, where we're kind of like not exactly competing. We're more competing against the board game, but we're also competing a little bit.
Yeah.
That's like the two brutal ones. I don't know if I can always take it.
The only one that
Yeah,
we have here, because, there's two teenagers that live with us too. We have two kids. And there's a game called Parcheesi. It's just a basic like roll dice, move a piece around the board. You can land on other players, and you want to go all the way around and get them to home, basically. And it's mostly numbers. Um, number 5 is really important in that game. That's the only brutal competitive game we play, but it's also really funny because somebody will get landed on, it'll send their piece back, and there's like all this like micro drama that erupts. It's just so fun, you know?
What's this one called? I might have played this one. I think
It's
I
a
know
really
it.
old game. It's called Parcheesi. It's an old Indian backgammon game, but you
Oh,
can
okay.
get a board for that, and it's very simple. Just two dice, and each player has 4 tokens basically that they move around. And there's some safe spaces, and you can land on another player. And if you do, they go home, and you get like 20 more spaces. So it can be kind of competitive, but it's not that brutal kind of competitive I remember as a kid, like Monopoly is the worst game ever invented. It requires zero skill. It's just like, let's sit here for 3 hours and worship capitalism to the point of exhaustion.
And it's most probably the most popular game, right? Monopoly, the one
People,
most known.
people love it. I don't know how it is in Europe, but people in America are just huge fans, and I'm just like, it is. There's really no redeeming quality to this. We could just watch a computer play it because your choices are pretty much irrelevant. It's just land on a space, buy the property. That's what you do. It's not very
Yeah.
skillful. It's tic-tac-toe has more skill.
Yeah, I think that my partner expresses this about Monopoly. He also designs sometimes board games as well.
Oh,
So
really?
he's really into the mechanics of it all, explains it all to me in detail.
I love that.
But I'm not allowed to talk about him too much online, so I'm holding
I
back.
won't. Yeah,
Yeah.
I get it. Not until
He's
it's released.
but not just about anything, just about him. Like also
Oh, I
I have
see. Private, private.
yeah,
Don't.
yeah.
Yeah. I have a good friend that does that too. He designed a game called Design by Committee, and it's one of the most creative games because not only is it cooperative, but it's also competitive simultaneously. So it's a really
Yeah.
tricky game.
Oh yeah, cool. Yeah. I like that.
And actually, Will, I first met him in college. He wrote an entire play in iambic pentameter at 5 acts, just like Shakespeare. It was
Oh
pretty.
wow.
He's a very good writer too.
Oh nice. Yeah, that is not easy.
Yeah.
Playwriting is very hard. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. And also like keeping the rhythm of iambic pentameter is I don't even want to
Yeah.
get into that. It's
Yeah.
very complex. So I think there's a nest of birds in the house. And this is a question actually for you too. Have you noticed certain senses have gotten more sensitive or had post awakening? Because I can hear these tiny, tiny little squeaks of these birds, this very high pitched sound right now.
Not of the five senses. I don't know if they've got any more perceptive, but I certainly the empathy or feeling energies or something has got more sensitive,
Mm.
but not of like sight, sound, not that I've noticed, or smell, not that I've ever noticed.
I
I
noticed a
get
lot of, I was overlooking a lot of things, overlooking in relationship with thought and also just a lot of visual things. Like I didn't ever give attention to the periphery of vision, really. It was very much more kind of tunnel vision. And those
yeah,
things started to kind of almost refine even sounds like in things that seem to be individual sometimes are very clear. And I'll ask the kids, or I'll ask Laura, hey, do you hear that? And they'll be like, no. And I'm like, there's hold on a second, let's go to this other room, and somehow I'll be perceiving something that they aren't perceiving.
and it's really interesting this line. So I was speaking with someone a while back, a scientist, and he was talking about we were talking about autism. And one thing that they in the scientific community that they're beginning to think is that autists, one thing that they have is a struggle to find their sense of self. And
Mm.
then another commonality of autism is an overwhelm of the senses because they haven't got the ability to distinguish the senses. And I
Um,
always think that there must be some similarity there, but autistic people maybe are more born like it, so they never, you know, find these boundaries or able to cut it off or stop it, and so then they begin to get into a lot of physical pain
mhm.
because they're so open to everything. So I always find that really interesting, like the senses and something like what we consider autism, like this, that because they think that they're not born with a strong sense of self,
Hmm.
then their senses are very open from the very beginning and it all becomes overwhelming. They can't distinguish the differences. And I sometimes think like that there is a similarity and maybe it is connected, autism and awakening and
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up. There is a young guy that I work with that he distinctly remembers, even through high school, feeling like he had to create an identity because it never felt natural for him to have like this, you know, all these desires, all these things that define him. He felt like that didn't ever really fit. And so
yeah.
that's interesting that you bring that up because that's something I've noticed too, is that I think that is a clear piece there that there isn't a strong sense of self and the overwhelm piece too.
Yeah. And then the like not being able to socialize properly, because I sometimes wonder, if they're born without a sense of self and they have no concept of that, but they're told that they're wrong, there's something wrong with them. So they go to school and they have to socialize. Like socializing is such a weird phenomena, the way that we're doing our facial expressions. Like sometimes I feel like I just want to be like one of the apes in the jungle. They're just like, and everyone's talking around you. You have to create facial like expressions, and I just want to be like, how like they're so without expression. Yeah, so I think that maybe I'm potentially being really un-PC here, about autism. But what I'm trying to get back to the point is that I can imagine that there is, like, if you're born really open, then I suspect that, trying to relate and do social facial expressions and understand emotions is going to be difficult. And then trying to find the boundaries. And then everyone's always saying, you're diagnosed autistic, there is something wrong with you. I think that there should be more of an investigation into what we call learning difficulties or special needs. But
I love that. Yeah, because there's like all these little political micro moments that show up in the social situations. And it's interesting. It's like these little mechanisms of gaining favor or dominating in some way. Like there's these strange little micro dramas are playing out often in this game of conformity that we could call it. And those who don't conform or just don't naturally move that direction seem to have some difficulty in that area, but at the same time are actually perceiving things more accurately for what they are, and then instead of through the social filter, which is it's kind of interesting. That was one thing I started to break apart, just saying whatever was coming, just letting it all come out naturally. Man, that would really fire some people up. Like, they would think that it had like a mean energy behind it, but it wasn't. It was really objective. Like I noticed that you're working really hard on hiding what you really mean. To say that to somebody, that would like make them like cringe big time. But to speak objectively was so free. And people are like, you're so blunt, and I'm like, really? I'm just being objective.
Yeah, and this is sometimes like what can happen when you're in relation with an autistic person is that they come out and say the most bluntest things. I kind of love it.
I love it. Like that kind of honesty it's irreplaceable, and then you see that with young children too. Sometimes they'll just tell you the first thing that they always like to say to me is, "You're bald." And I'm like, "Yes, absolutely true." And to think that that would somehow like fire up somebody's protection mechanism and to get upset doesn't make any sense. Like, how dare you refer to something that's factually accurate?
Yeah, that is very funny. We had this really funny incident at a retreat recently where this kind of happened, where an autistic person started this honesty game. And and then I was like, oh gosh, this is a disaster, because people, I could see everyone going like, oh. They were like, let's just go around the table and be really honest. And I'm like,
I'm not sure we're ready for that just yet.
They tried, it didn't go so well.
Oh my gosh. Oh, but I mean, it would be such a much more effective way to exist if we could just do that, and that's one thing I love about those who have had an awakening is it's 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 pretty easy to speak very objectively and to share objectively and with no kind of reaction or compensation afterward, you know.
Yeah.
Obviously there's different layers of what I guess we could call integration, which sounds really mysterious, but um I don't know, shadow work. Maybe we can talk a little bit about shadow.
Yeah.
Uh, seems to be absolutely crucial in all of this, just to engage with those things that we don't, that we want to hide from.
Yeah, I'm not always sure exactly what people mean when they say shadow work.
I guess I can clarify if you'd like.
Yeah, thanks.
It seems to be the things we don't want to address initially, and then the things we didn't even know were beneath the surface after that, just the places we don't look.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, totally. Yeah, we're very funky animals.
I mean,
Like, yeah, there
all
is some interesting stuff there.
the sense of like a self that's existed since childhood is a recursive experience, that's for sure. You know,
Mm.
how often do we get to reinvent ourselves in the moment? Well, every moment, really. But what's like holding this consistent me together? And it usually seems to be some sense of something that wants to be hidden, something that's wrong about me, something that's broken about me, something about me that's not lovable. Those kinds of
Mm.
statements seem to be pretty common.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah, and then the fact that we're also animals, and so we've got like thousands and thousands and billions. Yeah, me and my leaf
Oh, it was a
of
leaf. I didn't know if it was a fruit or a leaf. Okay, it's a leaf.
leaf. Yeah, we're also animals, so it's we've got violence in us, we've got the predator in us, we've got all the different elements to us. In a way, we've got like, I feel like we're all of life, so we've got all the different elements, but just on a biological level, we've got this, and that's so hard to admit. That we've all got the predator in us. We've got the competitor in us. Everyone wants to be the nice person because they see that as the most powerful. The nice person is the most successful, but only because of that. It's like, yeah. So I think it's really important. And sometimes it happens before awakening, sometimes it happens after awakening. And for me, it's like an endless process. Like I still discover new things about this character. I'm like, oh, hello. You're up to that, are you now?
Hmm. That's such a crucial piece too, is I've noticed a lot of people are looking for a place to be done, or a mark that I finally completed this, like, a trophy or a certificate or a graduation. And it's really not like that. It's
Yeah.
it's it's remarkable how certain circumstances can bring up something that we didn't know was lurking.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And imagine like all the different possibilities and potentialities there are out there of what we could be confronted with, and the different responses. We have no idea, what hunger does, or yeah, so many different scenarios that we might not have experienced in this life.
The financial aspects for some people, if everything's financially fine, they don't notice it. And then something changes there, and all of a sudden they're like, oh no, I've lost something. And it's like, no, not really. It's just
Yeah,
something to integrate, something to engage with,
yeah,
Hunger, like you said, or physical hunger. Um, Relationships are a huge piece for people.
yeah.
A lot of people wake up on their own and then they get into a relationship and they're like, I'm not awake.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, I mean, it's bringing out a lot of those really intimate, vulnerable things that were kind of hidden away a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a great thing about teaching is like is accepting that you're imperfect and then teaching at the same time, holding those two contradictions, teaching after you've just had an argument with your partner. No place to hide. You're like, oh, okay, honesty, everybody. I've just had a fight.
That's that's it. Radical honesty is so crucial. Like, if there's nothing to hide, I've also discovered, working with other people, they're much more likely to open up if you don't appear to be on some kind of pedestal, or
Mm,
in the midst of some sort of perfection. What
mm,
what I can say that has been very consistent, or is seemingly always the case, is just a general sense of well-being that never had existed before.
yeah,
So no matter what, that seems to be a constant. That's that's maybe the signature of the universe, and that's the platform that, we can call it a platform, but that's the place where working with people that I would love to walk them to. It just makes sense.
Yeah.
Just know that you're always okay. And then from there, the discoveries are endless.
Yeah.
But hypocrisy is this very human experience, right? Like
Yeah.
hypocrisy is the nature of what this all seems to be anyway. I mean,
Mm.
there's so many contradictions because it doesn't seem like anything's actually one way or another.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. See, this is the greatness of life. It doesn't allow us to be anything, right? So it's like you're the spiritual teacher that everyone thinks has got the argument, the answers, and then you've just had an argument with your partner, and you do it, start saying like, "Hello,
Hello.
we just had an argument about who does the washing up or who didn't buy the washing up tablet."
I think we had a bit of a tiff.
Yeah,
Is, is that a common word, tiff?
a tiff. Yes, it is tiff. Yeah, it's amazing the differences between American and English. It's really cute.
Well, when I learned what the word fanny meant in the UK, I was like,
The
oh
fanny
man.
pack. I know, and then you're wearing your fanny packs. Yeah, how funny that is just. I just got my fanny pack on, and we're like,
What?
I can tell you, going to Sac State for 6 months. I mean, this was in like 2002 or something as well. So it was like a bit before the internet really got going. So it was like these types of things. And then I'm so sorry for you're going to tell me that this is real middle name now or something, but our neighbor was also called Randy. And that in England means like somebody that's horny. And I've never
Horny,
met
yeah.
someone called Randy before. So then when they told me, I was really shocked, you know, but you have to like,
And he wanted a hug, and you're like, wait, if you're Randy,
I,
maybe not a good idea.
like there's quite a lot of these words. Yeah, your fanny pack. I mean, but you've got it the same way round with pussy, and then we call our pussy cats, you know. So it's the opposite way around there.
I
We
love
don't
that.
we don't use that word for the pussy is not a rude word in English, but we know now because of American TV.
Yeah, I hear there's even people in the Netherlands or Denmark, there's such a cultural awareness of like American slang that it's a little surprising working with
Yeah,
people in Europe. I was like, wow, you really know all that? That's interesting.
yeah, it's the TV. It's the Netflix.
The Netflix.
Yeah.
Randy, that one is that was so good.
Randy, that was so surprising.
That's a perfect story.
With his fanny pack. Oh dear. Like life is just such a joke, right? Like they come up with
Uh,
these things.
look, look
That's
at
so funny to an English person.
you're making the ginger face turn so red. Uh, oh, oh my gosh. You're hilarious. Ah, so grateful for the laughs.
Yeah.
So good. This has been, I feel like truly I could probably talk to you for hours and hours for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a real sweetness. We both like board games. I mean, that's something.
I mean,
And theatre.
I mean, that's everything right there. What else is it?
Yeah. Oh, and non-duality.
Oh yeah, we like when we barely touched into any of that, but
Yeah.
got some stuff. You know what I love is that lava lamp you have behind you.
Yeah. That's cool. Isn't
It's come up recently to just describe sensations in that way. That's what sensations seem to be doing often. Just
it? Yeah. I have another one here as well. It's not on at the moment. Yeah, I love them.
that's a good color, by the way.
Yeah, the orange. I'm getting a yellow one for my birthday. I already know.
Oh, you already know. Ooh,
Yeah, it's my birthday in a
Nostradamus.
couple of weeks. Yeah.
What month is your birthday?
June the 12th.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's coming
so
up. Well,
soon. Yeah,
happy early birthday.
yeah.
So yeah, um, at some point I was wanted to get into like the experience of dimensions, but that seems a little heavy at the moment. Um, It almost seems like consciousness itself, or whatever you want to call it. I don't even have a name. Whatever that other sense that you're speaking to has a fourth dimensional aspect to it, something that's kind of like simultaneously moving out and in itself. And there was this insight that came up recently about shadows are so interesting. So, for instance, if you have a two-dimensional object and it casts a shadow, it's going to be a one-dimensional shadow. And so a three-dimensional object will cast a two-dimensional shadow. And maybe this experience that seems three-dimensional for us is actually the shadow of a fourth dimension of experience, something that we can't intellectually comprehend, but somehow we have access to all the time. And there have been a lot of meditations and really direct experiences that are absolutely paradoxical, like a fourth dimensional object would be. And that would be kind of a fun exploration at some point to get into that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure if I know what you mean. You might have to go over that again.
Fourth dimensional stuff is really like intellectually impossible to comprehend or really difficult to. But what I'll do is I'll send you. There was a mathematician put together like a picture of an object that would basically be a fourth dimensional object, and it kind of helps kind of usher in a little bit of that comprehension. If you look at it, you can kind of get a sense. But you know the shape of a toros, which kind of rolls out of itself like a donut and is also simultaneously rolling into itself. It's something kind of like that. And I've had so many of those sensational experiences that it just keeps kind of um, unfolding like a fractal that seems like it could be a fun exploration.
Yeah, we can do that. But I think you need to send me the video so I can get a sense of more what you mean.
Yeah, I'll make it more clear.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you reached out.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. It's really lovely to meet you. And maybe you will be Andrew the cat
I
or
would love to.
Jerry the goblin cone. Yes.
I would love to.
Yeah.
Just let me know whatever you need. I would be glad to participate.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be something.
And in the meantime, you get some time alone.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah, some time alone, yeah.
Did you already do some writing today?
Yeah, I did, but not too much because I didn't sleep so well last night. So I was a bit dopey. So I only did about an hour and a half. I don't do that much every day. I do about 3 hours.
I have so much admiration for people that can write in such a way. I don't know what it is, but it comes out in very short bursts. Like here. This is the extent of any writing that's done here. Just these. Oh, did and these. I have a bunch of these. So they used to be note cards. Here, I'll pull one for you. They're called Cohen cards. This one says, "Can you find the boundary between here and there?"
How
And
did you
that's
know that's what it said? Oh, you read it quickly before.
very quickly. Here, I'll do another one. What meaning do you place on nothing?
Oh, that's a nice one. Well, they're both nice ones. But what meaning do we place on nothing? Yeah, that's a brain blower.
So that's about the extent of the writing that shows up for me. But I would love to read some of your writing if you ever want to share it.
You might regret
No,
asking that or saying that because I'm
I'll,
always looking for readers.
I will read. I will read for sure.
Yeah, I'm just coming up to the finish of the seventh version, I think it is.
Wow. Okay.
So it might be another month or two, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Send it this direction. I will definitely do it.
Yeah, that would be, I would love that, especially as you're another thespian. Do you say that in America?
We do.
Thespian? It's not
It,
very English.
we do, except the thing is, you don't usually say that in the in certain groups of people because they immediately think that you're calling yourself a lesbian.
Oh, I see.
It's, I mean, if you are in the theater world a thespian, of course everyone knows what that is. But if you were to say that in public, people will start going, Excuse me. Did you say you were a lesbian? No, Thespos, you know?
Yeah. Funny.
So yeah, there was something else. I don't, now it's gone. Oh, so I did a retreat check-in this last weekend, for people that had attended the retreat in Kentucky that we had just been on. And one of the men there said, "You don't get to negotiate with lightning." And I thought it was one of the funniest, most accurate things ever.
What were they saying it in reference to?
To the moment, or to this, to life. Like
Yeah.
you don't get to negotiate with lightning, and you're
Yeah.
being struck right now.
Yeah,
Hold
that's
on.
nice.
Wait, hold on.
Just let me move a little bit to the left.
Just let me put down this golf club real quick.
Yeah.
Too late. Too late.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I,
Really lovely to meet you.
I did want to ask, is there anything or anywhere I can send people for you?
Yeah,
So
just
send them
my
to your channel
name, yeah, to the channel, yeah, that's the best. Yeah, the YouTube channel or
and
my website.
website too. Anywhere else?
No, I don't really do much else, just those two.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll edit this and I'll put it together, and um I'll let you can also preview it before I put it up if you'd like. It's up to you.
I think we can go for it. It's been a really sweet conversation. It'll be interesting to see what you keep in.
I think I'm going to keep it all. I think just the conversation speaks for itself, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, thanks, Lisa.
Yeah, really lovely to meet you. Really glad that we managed the conversation.
It was
Really lovely.
perfect. Perfect.
Yeah.
And I definitely look forward to staying in touch.
Yeah. Yeah. And send me a link when you do put it out and then I can share it as well.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you, Josh. Bye.
All right. Bye.